Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into one of the darkest, strangest, and most fascinating corners of mythology, the story of Hades, the god of the underworld. If you think bedtime stories are supposed to be cheerful, this one might prove you wrong. But hey, you probably won't survive this one anyway, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where in the world you are and what time it is right now. I love seeing just how far this little nighttime ritual travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the silence, not the comfortable, cozy kind. This silence feels vast, ancient, as if it existed before the first sound was ever made. You're standing at the edge of something immense, something that isn't quite a place yet. This is the world before the familiar blue sky, before the sun that rises and sets. In Greek myth, everything begins with chaos. Not chaos as in noise and panic, but chaos as in a yawning void, a cosmic blank canvas. You almost feel yourself floating in it, like a dust mote suspended in black infinity. Slowly, shapes begin to form. First comes Gaia, the earth herself, heavy and solid under your feet. Then Uranus, the sky, a ceiling of stars stretched overhead. They give birth to titans, massive, terrifying beings who stalk this newborn universe. You sense Kronos, the titan who will one day devour his own children, looming in the shadows. And then from deep below something darker stirs. Tartarus, the pit, yawns open, a chasm so deep it makes you dizzy just to sense it. This is the first seed of what will one day become the underworld. You watch as the titans take control, shaping the world in their own harsh image. Kronos rules, paranoid and violent, swallowing each of his children as soon as they are born. Somewhere in that darkness, Hades, the god we've come here to meet, is swallowed too. Imagine being trapped in endless night, knowing nothing of light or sound, time slipping away until you aren't even sure you exist anymore. But then, a spark. Zeus, the youngest sibling, escapes Kronos' appetite and grows up in secret. You feel the tension coil like a spring. When Zeus finally rises against his father, the entire cosmos shakes. Mountains split, oceans boil. The first great war begins, the Titanomachy. You're pulled into the battlefield, though you can barely see through the dust and smoke. Gods and titans clash in a war so long it feels eternal. 10 years of thunderbolts, earthquakes, and storms that never seem to end. At one point, you swear you see the Cyclopes, those one-eyed giants, hammering out weapons in their subterranean forges. For Zeus, a thunderbolt. For Poseidon, the trident. And for Hades, the helm of darkness, a gift that will make him the most terrifying of the three brothers. Finally, the Titans are defeated. Kronos is cast down into Tartarus, his chains echoing forever in the black pit. And now comes the moment that changes everything. The division of the cosmos. You stand beside the three brothers as they draw lots. Zeus claims the sky, Poseidon claims the sea, and Hades, quiet, grim Hades, receives the underworld. There's no jealousy in his eyes, only a kind of grave acceptance, and just like that you're following him downward. It's not like falling, more like sinking into still water. The air grows colder, heavier, until it feels like breathing through velvet. You pass through the first gates, black iron etched with runes that seem to shift as you look at them. Behind them, the world of the dead stretches out, wide, gray, and endless. This is the first time you really see Hades' domain. The rivers have not yet formed fully, but you hear the faint sound of rushing water, somewhere far away. You see a faint red glow, maybe from Phlegethon, the river of fire, and somewhere else you catch the sound of soft, endless weeping. That must be Cocytus, the river of lamentation. It's not just empty. You sense presences, not quite people, not quite shadows, moving just at the edge of sight. The first dead have begun to arrive. Hades moves among them silently, already their king. His presence is not cruel, but absolute. There is no escaping him, no begging or bargaining. He is not the bringer of death. Thanatos will take that role. But he is its keeper, its warden. You realize, slowly, that this isn't a place of punishment, not yet. It is simply where souls go when their time above ends. It feels inevitable, like gravity. You follow him further in, toward the heart of this growing realm. There are no walls here, no ceilings, only a night sky without stars. Yet you feel protected, as though nothing living could find you here unless Hades allowed it. And then ahead of you a faint shape looms, the beginnings of the great palace, its black stone blocks already stacked high. Torches gutter in the darkness, casting just enough light to make the shadows seem deeper. You take one last breath of warm air from the world above and step into the underworld for real. You wake, though you're not sure you ever really slept, to find the underworld changed. What was once just a gray emptiness now has shape and movement, as though Hades' presence has begun to mold it. You hear the first full rush of water echoing through the cavernous expanse. The rivers have arrived. The first one you approach is Styx, the most famous of them all. Its water is black, not in the way of ink, but in the way of a starless night, so dark it seems to swallow light whole. You kneel near its edge, and for a moment you almost see your reflection. Then it vanishes, as if the river has claimed it. This is the river of oaths, you remember. Even the gods themselves fear breaking a promise sworn upon it, because doing so brings a punishment worse than death. 9 years of silence and exile from Olympus. You feel the weight of that rule settle on your shoulders and step back carefully. Next is Acheron, the river of pain. Its waters move more slowly, thick and reluctant, like something that doesn't want to flow but must. You hear whispers rising from its surface, not words you can understand, but sounds of grief so old they almost feel comforting. The souls drifting near it seem resigned, almost calm, as though they've been crying for centuries and have finally run out of tears. Then comes Phlegethon, and this one makes you stop breathing. It burns. Yes, its current is made of fire, but it doesn't throw off heat the way you expect. Instead, it's cold fire, pale and blue, casting an eerie light that dances over the cavern walls. It feels hungry, as if it could devour not just your body but your memory of ever existing. The fourth river is Cocytus, the river of lamentation. Here the air is heavy with sobbing. Shapes move beneath the surface, wailing so softly that it almost sounds like wind passing through hollow reeds. You think you might cry too, though you're not sure why. Nothing terrible has happened to you personally, but the grief here is contagious, like a fog that seeps into your lungs. And then there is Lethe, the most dangerous of them all, at least for you. Its water is strangely clear, glittering like moonlight caught in glass. You feel drawn to it, almost hypnotized, and for one terrifying moment, you think about touching it. But you stop yourself because you remember what it does. To drink from Lethe is to forget, to lose every memory you've ever had. This is the river souls drink from before they're reborn, washing away their past lives. A scholarly debate flashes through your mind. Philosophers still argue whether forgetting is a curse or a blessing. You step back, and that's when you notice something new at the edge of the underworld. A gate. No, not just a gate. The gate. Massive, wrought iron twisted into impossible shapes, glowing faintly with a dull bronze light. You move toward it slowly, every instinct telling you to turn back. And then you hear it. A growl so deep, it seems to come from the stone itself. From the shadows he appears, Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld. His eyes glow like embers, his fur bristling, and each head watches you separately. One head snarls, another tilts curiously, and the third simply stares. He's terrifying, yes, but strangely majestic too. You can almost feel the warmth of his breath as he leans closer. And then, as if deciding you are no threat, he steps aside, letting you pass. You exhale for the first time in what feels like minutes. Beyond Cerberus, the underworld opens into something wider, almost like a great plain. Here you see the judges for the first time. 3 figures who stand slightly apart from each other, cloaked and grave. Rhadamanthus, Iacchus, and Minos, their faces calm, their eyes impossibly deep. Each soul that arrives must come before them. You watch as one ghostly figure approaches, trembling. There's no shouting, no drama, just quiet deliberation. Finally, Minos gestures, and the soul drifts toward one of the 3 roads that branch out like veins in the dark earth. You follow with your eyes and realize those roads lead to 3 very different places. One leads to the fields of asphodel, where most souls go, a vast gray meadow where they wander endlessly, neither suffering nor celebrating, just existing. Another road leads toward Elysium, the bright shining fields where heroes and the exceptionally good dwell forever in peace. You catch a glimpse of soft green grass, warm sunlight, a place so beautiful it almost hurts to look at it. The last road is narrow, winding down into shadows so deep they seem to swallow sound. That, is the path to Tartarus, the prison of the wicked and the titans. You realize that Hades' realm isn't just darkness, it's order. Everything has a place, every soul has a destination. This isn't chaos, it's balance. And standing at the center of it all, silent but all-seeing, is Hades himself, his black robes falling perfectly still even in the windless dark. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The underworld is his voice. For a moment you feel small, but not afraid. Maybe that's the strangest thing, the realization that this place isn't meant to punish you, just to receive you when your time comes. It feels inevitable, like the pull of the tide. And as you stand there, you notice something new, a faint glimmer of light from far away, deep within this dark kingdom. Something is about to change. You start walking toward that faint light you saw, each step carrying you deeper into the heart of the underworld. The plain gives way to stone pathways, smooth as glass, as though they've been worn down by countless souls over countless centuries. The air grows colder, but it's a different kind of cold now. Not biting, just heavy, like it's pressing down gently on your shoulders, reminding you where you are. Ahead of you, the light grows brighter, flickering like torch flames. Then you see it, the palace of Hades. It rises from the black stone like it's grown straight out of the earth, massive and austere, every wall perfectly cut. There are no gilded statues, no marble columns like you'd find on Olympus. Everything here is functional, sharp-edged, quiet. Even the torches seem to burn more steadily, throwing shadows that stretch forever along the walls. As you step inside, the sound changes. It's still silent, but now it's the kind of silence that belongs to great halls, the kind that makes you instinctively lower your voice, even though you haven't spoken a word. The floor is polished obsidian, reflecting faint images of yourself as you walk. Pillars rise high above you, vanishing into the darkness of the ceiling, and every step echoes faintly as though the hall itself is listening. At the far end sits Hades. He doesn't sit on a golden throne like Zeus does, but on something darker, carved from black stone, smooth and simple, but undeniably a throne. He's tall, his hair falling like ink over his shoulders, his expression calm and unreadable. In one hand, he holds a staff tipped with a piece of shadow that seems to drink in light. You expect him to look menacing, but he doesn't. He just looks inevitable. You realize something then. Hades is not the villain of this story. He's not evil, not cruel. He simply is. His duty is to maintain balance, to ensure that no soul escapes its fate. Unlike Zeus, who is quick to rage, or Poseidon, who stirs storms when he's displeased, Hades doesn't lash out. When he speaks, it is only to command, and only when necessary. The underworld runs on his silence, on his stillness. Somewhere deeper in the palace, you hear faint movement, the soft rustle of leaves. At first you think you imagined it. Nothing grows here. But then you smell something impossibly sweet, like springtime carried on a breeze. For a second it feels like sunlight warms your face, and just as quickly, it's gone. The air is heavy again, the stone cold under your feet. You don't know it yet, but that was the first whisper of Persephone, the goddess who will one day transform this place. Your thoughts drift to Olympus, far above. You imagine Zeus on his throne, Poseidon in his sea palace, both of them ruling over realms full of light and movement. Hades is here, far from the sun, yet he does not complain, does not fight for a different lot. In fact, scholars still argue whether Hades chose the underworld willingly, whether he saw its necessity and claimed it for himself, or simply accepted what fate had given him. You walk further through the hall and notice smaller chambers branching off, rooms where the judges rest between verdicts, where the Furies gather, waiting to be unleashed on oath breakers. You catch a glimpse of one of them, a tall, winged figure with serpents for hair, and quickly look away. The Furies are terrifying, even when they are still. As you explore, you come to a balcony that overlooks the entire underworld. From here, you can see everything. The plains of asphodel stretching endlessly, the glow of Elysium in the distance, the black spiral of Tartarus far below. It's breathtaking in a way you didn't expect. This isn't just a place of death. It's a kingdom, vast and complex, and you're standing at its center. Behind you, you sense movement. You turn to find Hades watching you. His gaze is steady, measuring, but not hostile. In that moment, you feel like he understands exactly why you're here, even if you don't. He turns away first, striding back toward his throne, and for some reason that feels like permission for you to stay. You lean against the balcony rail, looking down into the endless dark, and realize that this story is far from over. Somewhere out there in the world above, the first flowers of spring are blooming. Somewhere Persephone is still free, but not for long. Far above, the world is warm. You can almost feel the sun on your face as the scene shifts, pulling you out of the palace and into fields of green. For the first time since you entered the underworld, there is color. Lush grass, blooming flowers, bees humming lazily from one blossom to the next. This is Persephone's world, untouched by shadow. She moves through it lightly, her hands brushing against stalks of wheat, her laughter as soft as wind through reeds. There is something unearthly about her, though she does not yet know she will be a queen. You follow her, unseen, as she wanders further from the other maidens who gather flowers nearby. She seems to prefer solitude, moving toward a patch of wild violets at the edge of a meadow. Then, without warning, the earth trembles beneath her feet. Birds burst into the air in a sudden panic. The ground splits open with a sound that is not quite a roar, not quite a sigh. More like the planet itself exhaling after holding its breath for too long. From the crack rises a chariot of black iron, its wheels wreathed in shadow, pulled by 4 immortal horses whose hooves strike sparks from the earth. At its reins stands Hades. He is not furious, not wild, simply resolute, as if this moment was always meant to happen. His black cloak flows behind him like a piece of night ripped from the sky. For a heartbeat, everything freezes. Persephone's eyes meet his. You expect fear, but what you see is something else. Shock, yes, but also a strange flicker of recognition. Then the moment shatters. Hades sweeps her into the chariot, and before you can breathe, the earth closes behind them. The meadow is quiet again except for a single flower crushed where she once stood. You feel the change immediately. Somewhere, Demeter, Persephone's mother and goddess of the harvest, senses her daughter's absence. The warmth in the air fades just a little. The wind grows sharper. You see Demeter searching frantically, her torch blazing, her hair loose and wild. She calls to the other gods, to mortals, to the earth itself. But no one answers. You drift back to the underworld, following Persephone and Hades as the chariot descends. The gates part for them without sound, and the moment she crosses the threshold, you feel the underworld itself react. This place that has known only silence, shadow, and the restless dead seems to hold its breath. The palace, which once felt empty, feels fuller now. The torches burn brighter, the air warmer, as though the realm is welcoming its first living guest. Persephone steps down from the chariot, her face pale but her chin lifted. Hades doesn't drag her, he simply gestures toward the hall. You watch her take in the endless expanse of the underworld, the black stone palace, the glowing rivers. Her fear is real, but so is her curiosity. Somewhere deep inside you feel that this moment is not just a kidnapping, it is the beginning of something much bigger. Above ground, Demeter's grief begins to twist into fury. The earth starts to wither. Crops fail. Grass turns brittle and brown. Farmers pray to the gods, but no rain comes. Hunger spreads like a shadow. This is the first famine. You can almost hear the whispers of mortals as they light candles and beg for mercy. The other gods watch nervously from Olympus. Zeus, at first, tries to soothe Demeter with words, but she refuses to return to her duties until her daughter is restored to her. Days pass, then weeks. The earth grows colder still. Eventually, even Zeus realizes this cannot go on. Mortals will starve, and their prayers will cease. That is when he sends Hermes, the swift messenger, down to the underworld to deliver a message. You stand beside Persephone when Hermes arrives. His winged sandals hardly make a sound on the obsidian floor, and yet the air seems to stir as though a breeze has entered. He bows slightly to Hades, then speaks quietly. Though you cannot hear every word, you know what he says. Persephone must be allowed to return to her mother. Hades listens without interrupting, his face as unreadable as ever. For a moment, it seems he might refuse. Then he turns to Persephone. There is no force in his voice when he speaks, only a simple question. Does she wish to leave? She hesitates, and that hesitation is everything. You see it. The way her fingers brush the edge of the throne she has been sitting on, the way her eyes linger on the underworld, as if memorizing it. Then she nods. Yes, she will go. But before she leaves, Hades offers her something small, a single pomegranate. Its skin is smooth, red as blood, gleaming like a jewel. Without thinking too much, she breaks it open and eats a few seeds. You hear the sound echo through the hall, small but final, like a bell being struck. Hermes doesn't react, but you do. You know the old rule. Anyone who eats the food of the underworld is bound to it. She may leave now, but she will always return. The underworld watches as Persephone departs. It feels emptier, colder, as if the brief warmth she brought has been extinguished. You follow her as she ascends, traveling the same path you took to get here, but now in reverse, rising through the river's echoes, past Cerberus, through the gate, into light. When she emerges into the world above, spring seems to erupt instantly. Flowers burst open where her feet touch the ground. The air grows warmer, the sun shines brighter, and you swear you can hear birds singing again. Demeter sees her daughter and runs to her, catching her in an embrace that seems to last forever. For the first time in months, Demeter smiles, and the earth responds. Wheat fields turn green again, orchards bloom, and the famine ends almost overnight. For a while, it feels like everything might be all right. You walk through a world that is alive again, feeling the relief of mortals who once feared starvation. They light fires in celebration, praising the gods for their mercy. Demeter and Persephone sit together on the edge of a meadow, laughing, weaving flowers into their hair. It feels like this story could end here, peaceful, happy, but fate isn't done. Zeus arrives, his face serious, and speaks to Demeter. His words are heavy, and you know what he's about to say before he says it. Persephone ate the food of the underworld. The pomegranate binds her. She cannot stay here forever. The joy drains from Demeter's face, replaced by grief so raw you can almost feel it in your chest. She argues, pleads, but the law is older than Zeus, older even than the Olympian gods themselves. Persephone must return to Hades for a portion of each year. When Persephone hears this, she doesn't cry. She just looks down at her hands, still stained faintly red from the pomegranate seeds. You see a flicker of something in her eyes. Sadness, yes, but not dread, maybe even a quiet acceptance. And so the first compromise in history is struck. For part of the year, Persephone will live above ground with her mother, and the world will bloom with spring and summer. For the rest of the year, she will return to the underworld, and as she descends, the earth will grow cold, barren, and silent. Thus the seasons are born. You follow her back on her first return. This time, the descent feels different, less like a kidnapping, more like a homecoming. The gates open smoothly. Cerberus wags his massive tail, a sight that would terrify you if it weren't strangely adorable, and the torches in the palace flare to life as though greeting her. Hades waits at the foot of the throne. He does not rush to her, does not smile, but there's a shift, a softening, as though the very walls of the hall are breathing easier now that she's here. She steps forward, no longer hesitant, and for the first time, it feels like she belongs. The underworld changes around her. Where once there was only stone, now there are small gardens, pale flowers that grow without sunlight, vines that curl around pillars, their leaves glowing faintly in the darkness. The rivers seem calmer, their currents gentler. The souls that wander asphodel stand a little taller, as though remembering they were once alive. You stand beside her, watching as she moves through the halls, her presence filling every shadow with something new. It isn't light exactly, more like balance. For the first time, the underworld feels alive, not just a place of endings, but a place of cycles. You realize this is what Persephone brings, not just warmth but renewal. Above ground, winter begins. Snow falls quietly over the fields. Farmers huddle inside their homes, waiting, knowing that spring will come again. And down here, in the quiet dark, Persephone takes her place beside Hades on the black throne. 2 rulers now, not 1. The queen of the underworld has arrived. Time passes differently here. You can't tell if it's days or centuries that go by as you watch Hades and Persephone settle into their shared rule. The palace no longer feels quite so lonely. You see Persephone moving through the halls with quiet confidence now, her hand brushing the cold stone walls as if she is learning every corner of this vast kingdom. Sometimes Hades walks beside her, his steps slow and deliberate. They do not speak much. Words seem unnecessary between them. But you can feel the gravity that pulls them toward each other. At first, you wonder if Persephone resents her fate. After all, she was taken from the sunlight, from the fields of spring. But the longer you stay, the more you notice how she has changed. Her hair still smells faintly of flowers, but now there is something deeper about her, a stillness that matches Hades' own. When she sits on the throne beside him, she does not look like a prisoner. She looks like a queen. Word of this strange arrangement spreads to the world above. Mortals begin whispering her name, praying to her not just as the goddess of spring, but as the lady of the dead, the one who might grant their loved ones peace. Some even dare to leave offerings at the mouth of caves, hoping she will guide their souls safely when their time comes. You drift upward for a moment, to the hills of Eleusis in Greece, where torches burn at night. You see robed figures walking in silence, carrying baskets of grain and small jugs of wine. They gather in a sacred hall, speaking words you can't quite catch. These are the Eleusinian mysteries, the great rites in honor of Demeter and Persephone, secret ceremonies promising hope beyond death. No one outside the ritual ever knows exactly what is revealed there, and scholars still argue whether the initiates truly saw a vision of the afterlife or simply felt something too profound to describe. You return to the underworld and find Persephone sitting in one of her new gardens. Tiny white blossoms grow at her feet, glowing faintly in the darkness. She kneels, touches them gently, and they seem to bloom a little wider. You realize she is not just a queen, she is a bridge between life and death. Her presence here softens the edges of this place, turning it from a realm of endings into one of transformation. Even Hades seems different now. He is still solemn, still quiet, but sometimes you catch a flicker of something like contentment on his face. Once, you even hear him laugh, low and rare, like distant thunder. It echoes through the halls and the torches flare as if startled. Mortals above ground continue to feel her influence. Every time Persephone returns to the underworld, the earth grows cold, and every time she rises, spring begins again. You can almost hear the rhythm of it, a heartbeat running through the world. Descent, return, death, rebirth. One night, if night even exists here, Persephone looks toward the great gates and says something you barely catch. "I think I understand now." She doesn't explain, but you feel it too. The underworld is no longer just a place you visit. It's a part of the world's balance, as necessary as the sky or the sea. You stand on the balcony again, watching the endless plains of asphodel. Souls drift like pale fireflies below, and for the first time, they seem less lost. Somewhere, very far away, you hear a soft song, maybe a mortal prayer, maybe the echo of the mysteries. It reminds you that even in darkness, there is always a path forward. And then quietly, you feel the first chill in the air, the sign that Persephone will soon rise again. The cycle continues, as it always will. You wake to find the underworld restless, as though calling you to explore further. Persephone's gardens lie behind you, glowing softly in the dark, but ahead is a path you haven't yet taken. The black stone feels colder under your feet as you walk, and soon the palace fades from view. The first place you reach is the fields of asphodel, a gray meadow stretching endlessly in every direction. Countless souls wander here, their faces calm but distant, as though caught in a dream. Some hum faint songs from their mortal lives, others simply walk in slow circles, as if time no longer matters. There is no pain here, no joy either, just endless quiet. You can almost feel your own thoughts slowing down, the the silence wrapping around you like a blanket. But then, the path bends sharply downward, and the air grows hotter. The sound of chains clinking reaches your ears, followed by faint screams. You've reached the fields of punishment. Here, the darkness glows with a reddish light, casting long, eerie shadows on the cavern walls. The souls here are not wandering. They are trapped, each one caught in a punishment that matches their crime. You see Sisyphus, sweating and straining, forever pushing his boulder up a hill only to watch it roll back down. A little further away, Tantalus reaches for a branch heavy with fruit, but every time his fingers brush it, it snaps just out of reach, and when he bends to drink from the water at his feet, it dries instantly. You feel the heat intensify, and realize you are nearing Tartarus itself. The pit is vast, deeper than any mountain is tall, and its bottom glows with a faint red haze. Here lie the Titans, bound in chains forged by the gods themselves. You can hear their roars echoing up from the abyss, too distant to be dangerous, but still enough to make your heart race. Even the air seems heavier here, as if warning you not to go any further. You turn back, following a faint golden glow that cuts through the dark. The temperature shifts again, this time becoming warm and soft. The air smells faintly of grass after rain. When you step into Elysium, it feels like stepping into a dream. The fields here are green and endless, the sky a soft twilight that never fades. You see heroes of old walking peacefully, Achilles sitting under a tree, perhaps finally at rest after the Trojan War. Poets reciting verses to one another, musicians playing harps whose notes drift like mist, and beyond Elysium lies something rarer still, the Isle of the Blessed. You glimpse it only faintly, far away, across a shining sea. This is where the very best souls go, the ones who have lived 3 virtuous lives in a row. It glows with an otherworldly light, a paradise within a paradise. You almost want to stay, but you know this is not your place. Not yet. On your way back, you notice something strange. Footprints that don't belong to wandering souls. These are fresh, sharp, the footprints of the living. You realize with a chill that mortals sometimes make their way down here. Orpheus will come one day, carrying his lyre, braving the underworld for the sake of love. Heracles will descend too, to wrestle Cerberus as one of his labors. Even Theseus and Pirate House will attempt to steal Persephone, though that ends badly for them. You glance toward the gates and imagine those living heroes walking through, feeling the same chill you felt. You wonder how many of them were brave and how many were simply foolish. You can almost hear the faint notes of Orpheus' music, soft and mournful, even though he hasn't arrived yet. By the time you return to the palace, the underworld feels bigger than before, as though you've seen every corner of it. You look up toward the ceiling, or maybe it's a sky, and notice that the darkness isn't empty anymore. Tiny points of light gleam faintly, like stars. Perhaps they were always there, and you're only just now able to see them. Persephone is waiting for you when you return. She doesn't speak, just looks at you with knowing eyes, as though she expected you to explore. Somewhere deep inside you feel a quiet pride, not because you survived what you saw, but because you understand this place just a little more now. Time passes differently here. You can't tell if it's days or centuries that go by as you watch Hades and Persephone settle into their shared rule. The palace no longer feels quite so lonely. You see Persephone moving through the halls with quiet confidence now, her hand brushing the cold stone walls as if she is learning every corner of this vast kingdom. Sometimes Hades walks beside her, his steps slow and deliberate. They do not speak much. Words seem unnecessary between them, but you can feel the gravity that pulls them toward each other. At first, you wonder if Persephone resents her fate. After all, she was taken from the sunlight, from the fields of spring. But the longer you stay, the more you notice how she has changed. Her hair still smells faintly of flowers, but now there is something deeper about her, a stillness that matches Hades' own. When she sits on the throne beside him, she does not look like a prisoner. She looks like a queen. Word of this strange arrangement spreads to the world above. Mortals begin whispering her name, praying to her not just as the goddess of spring, but as the lady of the dead, the one who might grant their loved ones peace. Some even dare to leave offerings at the mouth of caves, hoping she will guide their souls safely when their time comes. You drift upward for a moment, to the hills of Eleusis in Greece, where torches burn at night. You see robed figures walking in silence, carrying baskets of grain and small jugs of wine. They gather in a sacred hall, speaking words you can't quite catch. These are the Eleusinian mysteries, the great rites in honor of Demeter and Persephone, secret ceremonies promising hope beyond death. No one outside the ritual ever knows exactly what is revealed there, and scholars still argue whether the initiates truly saw a vision of the afterlife or simply felt something too profound to describe. You return to the underworld and find Persephone sitting in one of her new gardens. Tiny white blossoms grow at her feet, glowing faintly in the darkness. She kneels, touches them gently, and they seem to bloom a little wider. You realize she is not just a queen. She is a bridge between life and death. Her presence here softens the edges of this place, turning it from a realm of endings into one of transformation. Even Hades seems different now. He is still solemn, still quiet, but sometimes you catch a flicker of something like contentment on his face. Once, you even hear him laugh, low and rare, like distant thunder. It echoes through the halls and the torches flare as if startled. Mortals above ground continue to feel her influence. Every time Persephone returns to the underworld, the earth grows cold, and every time she rises, spring begins again. You can almost hear the rhythm of it, a heartbeat running through the world, descent, return, death, rebirth. One night, if night even exists here, Persephone looks toward the great gates and says something you barely catch. "I think I understand now." She doesn't explain, but you feel it too. The underworld is no longer just a place you visit. It's a part of the world's balance, as necessary as the sky or the sea. You stand on the balcony again, watching the endless plains of asphodel. Souls drift like pale fireflies below, and for the first time, they seem less lost. Somewhere very far away you hear a soft song, maybe a mortal prayer, maybe the echo of the mysteries. It reminds you that even in darkness, there is always a path forward. And then quietly, you feel the first chill in the air, the sign that Persephone will soon rise again. The cycle continues, as it always will. Tonight the underworld feels different. The air carries a faint vibration, a thread of sound so delicate you almost think you're imagining it. You follow it, and the closer you get, the more you realize it's music, soft, trembling notes that don't seem to belong in this place of silence. Near the gates you see him, a man dressed in simple clothes, dust on his sandals, clutching a lyre close to his chest. His eyes are tired but burning with something fierce, hope, or maybe desperation. This is Orpheus, the greatest musician who ever lived. They say even stones used to weep when he played, and now you understand why. He strums the strings, and the song spills out like liquid moonlight. The melody winds through the halls, curling around the black pillars and creeping through the endless corridors of the dead. The Furies, who never cry, pause and listen. Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed guardian, lies down with a sigh and rests his head on his paws. Even the souls wandering the fields of asphodel stop moving, turning their pale faces toward the sound as if they remember for just a moment what it was like to be alive. You follow Orpheus as he walks deeper into the kingdom, his music opening the way like magic. When he finally reaches the throne room, Persephone is already there, her expression softer than you've ever seen it. Hades sits beside her, motionless as stone, but even he seems to lean forward slightly, listening. When the song ends, there is a silence so deep you can hear the drip of water somewhere in the distance. Orpheus kneels, voice shaking as he begs for Eurydice, his beloved wife who died too soon. He tells their story, the wedding, the snakebite, the grief that hollowed him out. You can feel every word like a pulse in the air. Persephone glances at Hades. For a long time, the god of the dead says nothing. You wonder if he will refuse. After all, death is meant to be final. But then slowly he nods. His voice is low and even when he speaks, but it carries through the hall like distant thunder. Eurydice may follow Orpheus back to the world above, he says, on one condition. He must not look back until they have both fully left the underworld. You feel the tension knot in your chest. It sounds simple, but you know it isn't. The path back is long and dark, and the silence behind him will gnaw at his thoughts. Still, Orpheus agrees. You follow him on the long ascent. His footsteps are slow and careful, the music now replaced by a fragile, aching quiet. You can almost hear his thoughts. Is she really there? Are they tricking me? At times he clenches his hands so tightly his knuckles turn white, but he keeps walking. The light of the living world grows brighter. You can see the threshold ahead, the final step that will take him back to sunlight. And then, just a heartbeat away from freedom, he falters. He stops, turns, and in that instant, you see her. Eurydice, her face pale but shining with hope, just before she is pulled backward, vanishing like mist. The look on Orpheus's face as he realizes what he's done is something you will never forget. He cries out, but the deal is broken. The gates close behind her, and this time there will be no second chance. Orpheus collapses to his knees, his lyre falling silent. The underworld returns to its usual stillness, as though the music was never here. You linger for a moment, your chest heavy. Somewhere deep inside the palace you think you hear Persephone sigh. Maybe even she wishes the story had ended differently. When you finally leave Orpheus behind, the air feels colder. You know you have just witnessed one of the great tragedies, one that mortals will sing about for centuries. The underworld is quiet tonight, but it doesn't stay that way for long. A low rumble rises from the gates, not music this time, but footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, and full of purpose. You feel it before you see him, like distant thunder rolling closer. And then he appears. Heracles, the strongest man who ever lived. His shoulders are broad enough to fill the passageway, his lion skin cloak trailing behind him, club resting casually against one shoulder. His face is calm, but you can see in his eyes that this is not a casual visit. This is his 12th and final labor, and he is here for Cerberus. Even the dead seem to step aside as he walks deeper into the kingdom. You follow him, heart pounding in the hush. The torches along the wall flare brighter as if reacting to his presence. This is no ordinary mortal. This is a man who has faced gods, monsters, and madness itself, and lived. When he reaches the great hall, Hades is already waiting. The god of the dead sits on his throne, his expression as still as ever, though you can almost feel a flicker of amusement. Persephone is beside him, silent, but her gaze lingers on Heracles, as though measuring his worth. Heracles bows, a rare sight, and explains why he has come. He needs to bring Cerberus to the surface as proof of his strength. He does not ask Hades for permission so much as he states it, but there is no arrogance in his tone, just quiet resolve. For a long moment there is no answer. The hall feels colder, the silence pressing against you. And then Hades speaks. His voice is slow, deep, almost like the earth shifting under your feet. He says Heracles may take Cerberus, but only if he can do it without weapons. You follow Heracles as he walks to the gates where Cerberus waits. The three-headed hound growls low, each head snarling in turn, its massive claws digging into the ground. Even from a distance you can feel the heat of its breath. Most mortals would have turned and run by now. But Heracles does not run. Slowly he sets down his club. Then he steps forward, hands outstretched. The fight is quiet but terrible. Cerberus lunges, snapping and thrashing, its head striking like snakes. Heracles wraps his arms around the beast, muscles straining, his jaw clenched. You can hear every breath, every growl, echoing through the cavern like a storm. Minutes stretch into something longer, until at last Cerberus stills. Not defeated, not broken, just subdued. Heracles stands there, breathing hard, one hand gripping the scruff of the beast's neck. You realize he is not just strong, he is stubborn enough to wrestle death itself and refuse to lose. When he turns back toward the palace, Hades is still seated, watching with the faintest trace of approval. Perhaps he respects strength when it is used with restraint. With a gesture, he allows Heracles to go, Cerberus trotting obediently at his side. You follow them to the edge of the underworld, watching as Heracles leads the hound upward. For a brief moment, you almost pity Cerberus. This creature who has never left these gates, now dragged into the sunlight for the first and only time. When Heracles disappears into the mortal world, the underworld exhales. The gates shudder once, then fall still. Everything feels a little darker now, as if the place itself wants its guardian back. Hours later, or maybe days, you see Cerberus return, bounding through the gates, shaking off the dust of the surface world. He settles back into his usual place, and the underworld feels whole again. The underworld feels unusually still tonight, as if holding its breath. You feel it before you see anything, a strange ripple in the air, like when a stone drops into a perfectly calm pond. Then you notice movement near the gates. 2 figures entering side by side. They are not like Orpheus, whose grief softened every step, nor like Heracles, whose strength radiated quiet power. No, these 2 have a different energy. Restless, ambitious, almost cocky. Theseus, the hero of Athens, strides forward with the confidence of a man who has slain the Minotaur and lived to brag about it. Beside him is Persephone, his equally daring companion. Their goal is simple and utterly insane. They have come to steal Persephone. Yes, you heard that right. They are here to kidnap the Queen of the Dead. Even before they reach the palace, the underworld seems to sense what they are planning. The path grows longer, stretching unnaturally, as if trying to delay them. The torches flicker in a wind you cannot feel, but still they press forward, laughing under their breath, muttering about how the gods won't stop them. When they finally reach the throne room, Persephone is nowhere to be seen. Hades sits alone on his throne, watching them with that unreadable expression. You wait for him to summon his guards, or unleash some terrifying punishment, but instead he smiles. That should worry you. With a calm wave of his hand, he gestures to 2 stone benches that seem to rise from the ground itself. He invites them to sit, to rest before their long journey back. And here is where everything changes. The moment they sit down, the stone grips them like iron. Their bodies jerk once in surprise, and then they cannot move. Not a single muscle responds. They are frozen, alive but trapped, their expressions slowly shifting from smug confidence to dawning horror. You watch as hours, then days, seem to pass. The benches do not release them. Their skin grows pale, their voices hoarse as they beg to be freed. Persephone shouts curses at first, then falls into muttering, then silence. Theseus stares straight ahead, jaw tight, realizing too late the price of his arrogance. Mortals above ground will one day whisper about this punishment, how Theseus and Persephone were literally rooted to the underworld, unable to rise. Some say snakes began to coil around their legs, slowly, patiently. Others claim the earth itself began to swallow them, grain by grain, until only their terrified faces were left above the surface. Scholars still argue whether this is a metaphor for hubris or a warning never to challenge Hades. Eventually, word reaches Heracles during his labors. When he descends to the underworld, he finds Theseus still bound, and with great effort manages to pull him free, though part of the rock comes up with him, clinging to him like a shadow. Persephone, however, remains where he is. No one ever sees him leave. When you turn to look one last time, you see Persephone staring back at you, his eyes wide and unblinking. The torches flicker, and for a moment, you imagine he is silently pleading with you to help him. But the underworld is clear on this. Some mistakes cannot be undone. You leave the hall quickly, and the silence that follows feels heavier than usual. The underworld is quiet again tonight, but this time it feels less heavy, almost inviting. You take a different path, following the faint sound of running water. Soon you come to the banks of a wide, slow-moving river. Its surface is perfectly still, reflecting the faint glow of the cavern's ceiling like a sheet of black glass. This is Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. The souls who wish to be reborn must drink from it, letting go of their memories before they return to the world above. You watch as a few pale figures approach the shore. They kneel, scoop up the dark water in their hands, and drink. Almost immediately, you see the change. Their faces relax, the lines of worry smoothing away. They look up, blinking, as though trying to remember what they were here for, and then they simply walk onward, toward the passage that leads back to the mortal world. You realize they are about to be born again, carrying nothing with them of who they once were. But not every soul chooses Lethe. Some seek another river, harder to find, Mnemosyne, the river of memory. You follow a narrow path through the caverns until you find it. The water here glows faintly, like moonlight captured in liquid form. The few who drink from this river do not forget. They remember everything. Scholars still argue whether this choice leads to wisdom or madness. To remember all your lives might be a blessing, or it might weigh on you like a stone. You imagine a soul stepping back into the mortal world with perfect memory, able to see patterns others cannot. Perhaps these are the ones who become prophets, poets, or visionaries. You sit by the edge of Mnemosyne and watch the ripples spread. The sound of the water is soothing like a lullaby. For a moment you almost dip your hand in, just to see what you might remember. But something inside you hesitates. Nearby another river flows more swiftly, the Styx, which you crossed before. This is the river of oaths, where the gods themselves swear their most unbreakable promises. You imagine Zeus himself placing his hand upon the dark water, knowing that if he breaks his word, he will fall into a death-like sleep. Even gods are bound by the rivers here. Further downstream, you hear the rushing roar of Phlegethon, the river of fire, glowing faintly red as it coils through the darkness like a serpent. Its flames do not consume, but they do purify, burning away what must be left behind. You stay for a long while, just listening to the rivers. The air is cool, damp, and peaceful. Somewhere behind you, Persephone's soft footsteps echo briefly. Perhaps she is here to check on the souls who are about to return to life. Eventually, you stand and make your way back toward the palace. The underworld feels different now. It's no longer just a place of endings. It's a place of beginnings, too. You can feel the rhythm of it deep in your bones. Forget, return, live, die, repeat. When you pass through the fields of asphodel again, the wandering souls seem quieter, more patient. Maybe they, too, are simply waiting for their turn to drink from Lethe. You pause for a moment and glance back at the rivers. Their surfaces shimmer in the faint light, and for just a moment, you swear you can hear them whispering. Not words exactly, but something like an invitation.